Hello, I'm Alexandra Sleator, Career Accelerator. And what this means is that working together, we can make sure that you achieve your career objectives faster than you would on your own. Together we can address a variety of career challenges. Of course, we can help you progress your career. And that can take the form of constructing a strategy to ensure that you win that promotion that you so richly deserve. Or we can help you think about how to repackage your skill as well as promote yourself so that you can make a bid for a role that's quite different from the one you have today. We can support you in your career right here, right now, so that you do well and position yourself for the future. And in doing that, we will work on polishing or even developing core skills such as communication, conflict management, presenting with confidence, personal effectiveness, team performance, and leadership, to mention just a few. And finally, if you're in a transition phase in your career, we can work together to return you fast and successfully to the workforce. Or we can help you to redefine success so that you identify and are able to embark on a much more fulfilling career in possibly a different industry. The point is that no matter what your issue, working together, we will ensure that you achieve your career aspiration in a time and cost-efficient way. Welcome to this tutorial on the body language of interviews. This is the third in my ongoing series of tutorials which I'm designing in order to assist those of you who want to find a new role in 2013. In preceding tutorials, we looked at first how to build a noteworthy CV. And if you have missed that, the URL for that tutorial is appearing on your screen right now. The second chapter was dedicated to writing an eye-catching cover letter. And again, if you'd like to catch this up, the URL for that tutorial is now appearing on your screen. In this tutorial, we're going to look at non-verbal communication during interviews. And so I'm going to share with you, as it says, 3 secrets, the 3 fundamental pieces of your body language that I'm suggesting you need to manage in order to do well in an interview. And next month, still in that vein of body language in interviews, we'll look at body language mistakes. What happens when we don't get it right? So that's the program. Before I tell you about nonverbal communication in interviews, let me point you to a series that I created last year. And that series was about verbal elements of interviews, i.e. the dialogue that you have with your interviewer, how you answer their questions for maximum impact, and of course also what questions that you can ask, and a number of related topics. So if you're interested in looking at the dialogue with your interviewer and you missed that series last year, the URL for these 3-part series is now appearing on your screen. So, why would we want to talk about body language in interviews? In fact, why body language? I think all of us have a sense that body language is important. And so let's just remind ourselves that indeed, unless we are a fantastic actor or a very gifted hustler, for most of us, our body language will betray how we genuinely feel about a person or a situation. If you think of a situation where you're saying something nice to a person that in fact you quite dislike, it is more than likely that the tension in your body, something about the tension in your face, as well as stiff smile, will indicate to that person that you're not really being truthful. So 2 takeaways from that. The first is that don't lie in an interview. Because if you do that, again, the likelihood is that you will, through some very minor but very telling clues, alert the other person to the fact that you're not being completely truthful. And they will not really be able to note in detail what they saw. It happens outside our conscious awareness, but it does absolutely happen. So don't lie in an interview. The other takeaway is that it would therefore be useful to align both the verbal and the nonverbal elements of your behavior in interview so that you come across as very genuine, very personable, very competent. And that you don't, through an inappropriate body language, let yourself down despite doing well in the dialogue element. So that's why I suggest you pay attention to your body language throughout any sort of communication, but here we're focusing on the interview piece. So, I promised you 3 secrets, so here we go with the first one. And I'm sure that they will not be surprising to you. The first one is making eye contact. Indeed, as the interview starts and you enter the room, meet that person for the first time, and then as the interview unfolds, make eye contact. Of course, by eye contact I don't mean staring, much less glaring, fixing them. I mean genuinely showing interest in what they are saying when they are speaking, sharing something with you, as well as when you are the one speaking, answering their questions, showing that you are able to notice their reaction and adjust depending on their response to what you're saying. In short, eye contact is about making an eye connection, a human connection, and it is the way that you really develop rapport with your interviewer and start to build, of course, trust. Many of you will have had experience of panel interviews, so making eye contact means that you must, by all means, make sure you look at each and every member of the panel. And be careful, because if you forget one person, they won't forget you. They will know that you didn't look at them, and that will, of course, go against you. One last little anecdote around eye contact. I have a friend of mine who, when he concentrates, frowns. Deep thinker. Now you can imagine how a frown can be perceived. So for this person, preparing for interviews is about reminding himself not to concentrate too hard on either what the interviewer is saying or on what he himself is saying when he replies. Because otherwise the frown comes out and the impression is not a positive one. Now, why did I share this little story with you? Well, because you see, it starts with your eyes, but then it impacts the entire facial expression. So if you were to smile, and we're going to talk about that in just a second, but your eyes were not smiling, then the person would know, again, that you're not being genuine and sincere. So it starts with your eyes and it radiates throughout the rest of your face. So bear that in mind when you think of eye contact and what happens here. It's broader. So I was just alluding to the smile, and indeed smiling is the second element in that secret of the successful body language in interviews. And what is interesting is that when we study body language, we can note that there are cultural variations. For example, I like to speak with my hands quite a bit, which is probably a sign that I come from the South. So while there is clearly some individual elements to body language, there are cultural, national differences. But the smile is universal. The smile is the universal sign of warmth. It works everywhere with everyone. And indeed, the other day, I was running a little experiment ahead of recording this tutorial. I was at a nail bar, and I decided to smile at everyone there. And so I did. Clearly, there was a majority of ladies there, but there was also one male client. And I will tell you, everybody smiled back. Not one person gave me an odd look, as in, why are you smiling at me? I don't know you. So what is going on that a smile can have such positive effects with complete strangers? And I think the answer lies with the question, what goes on in our minds when somebody smiles at us? Now for me, what goes on when I'm being smiled at is, this person likes me. This person is on the same wavelength as me. This person understands me. This person and I will get on together. And so if I'm being smiled at in the context of a work encounter, one of the thoughts I could have is our meeting will go well. I suggest that you repeat that little experiment and smile at people in the street. Or, when next someone smiles at you, try and capture the thoughts that go on through your mind as you're being smiled at. And you will notice that a smile elicits all sorts of positive thoughts, unsubstantiated. When somebody smiles at me and I think that they like me, there is no rhyme or reason to that thought, and yet it's there and it's powerful. So when you smile at your interviewer, you're creating in that person all these positive thoughts, and you are building rapport, showing warmth, developing trust. When I share this tip effectively about smiling, some people have sometimes said to me, but if I smile, Alexandra, I'm not going to come across as professional, composed, poised. And indeed, some people think they have to look very serious in interviews to convey that air of professionalism and competence. And I say, no, this is absolutely the wrong way around. When you smile, you develop trust. When you don't smile, you will have to work twice as hard to develop that credibility. So, the minute you see your interviewer, smile, and then keep smiling appropriately. A genuine, warm, but not all teeth out kind of smile. Smile as you talk. Smile as they speak. Smile. So that was the second secret. So now for the third secret, and that's the handshake. Now, some of you may be surprised that I'm dealing with the handshake as the third piece of that secret toolkit of the successful body language of interviews. Because after all, the handshake comes pretty quickly. But no, in those few seconds before you shake hands, you will make eye contact and you will start smiling. So that's why I decided to talk about the handshake last. But last, but by no means least. And that's because the handshake is not just something you do at the beginning of the interview, but also at the end. And I have to say to you that in my experience, and the experience of people I've been working with, if you get your handshake wrong, and that's the last thing that you do, even if you have smiled and made eye contact and handled the verbal elements of your interview properly, that poor handshake will leave a negative impression, and in fact could really weigh on the impression and the evaluation that the interviewee will make of their time with you. So the handshake, by no means least, even though it comes in this series a little bit last. Let's remind ourselves about the history of handshakes. Why do we shake hands? The handshake came about when, in clearly earlier times, men came to a meeting to negotiate, to collaborate, to discuss, and they came with their hands empty. They came unarmed. And so because their hands were free of weapons of any sort, they could hug and shake hands. So why am I telling you this story? I'm telling you this story because indeed, an interview is not a confrontation. Both of you come in peace, and if you come from a place of peace, of being grounded and centered, that's already something that's going to help you maintain your confidence and poise throughout the interview. You're in the right mindset, and you model that mindset to the other person. But also because it means you must continue, even in the 21st century, to show both hands. Yes, you're going to only use one to shake, but the other one must be visible. Otherwise, what you're doing is triggering a subliminal fear that with an invisible hand, a hidden hand, maybe, after all, you're not coming completely unarmed. So for gentlemen and ladies, it's fine, of course, to carry a briefcase or handbag because that hand that is carrying the bag or briefcase is still visible. What is not so appropriate and not so helpful really is to have your hand, the other hand that you're not going to use for the handshake, be in a pocket. Because as I said, that will send some probably red flags in the interviewer's mind. So show both your hands. Now, last, the technique to shake hands. A number of steps there, and a slide will appear now on the screen, so you can note down how to properly shake hands. So let's go. You extend your arm at a roughly 45-degree angle from the floor. You expose your palm at a roughly 20-degree angle from the vertical. You ensure that your hand is firm and your fingers slightly bent back. You open as wide an angle as possible between your thumb and your index. And on that basis, you get a good web-to-web contact as your fingers wrap around the other person's hand. Got it? And in this fashion, you really get a handshake that conveys your firmness of character. So it's appropriately firm. It's not limp, it's not moist, and it doesn't break the other person's fingers either. So there you have it. The 3 secrets of the body language of the successful interviewee. And what I was trying to convey here is that while we spend a lot of time preparing, how we're going to answer questions about our professional achievements, what messages do we want to convey about who we are as a professional, the fact is that for some of us, and in fact I would argue for many of us, the interview success is decided in a few seconds at the beginning, when we fail to smile, when we don't shake hands, or we don't really look at the person in an authentic and transparent way. So by all means prepare your answers, but also let me encourage you to rehearse yourself also in terms of the non-verbal elements, that body language, and don't do it in front of a mirror. Do it with an actual person who can give you feedback, who can tell you about those facial expressions that you might be unaware of, like the frown from my friend, and that can get you into trouble. If you meet an interviewer, genuinely gaze into their eyes, smile warmly, and shake hands with the appropriate degree of firmness, you will be stacking the odds so much in your favor. I'm not saying the rest is a piece of cake, but it will be so much easier on you. So that's why I thought I wanted to make sure that I devoted a bit of time to the body language of interviews and how to be successful in that part of the non-verbal element of interviews. So I'll leave you then to ponder this, to rehearse yourself. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. If you'd like to share your own experience, let me invite you as always to comment below this video, or just to pen me an email with your own story. That would always be lovely. But as I leave you, let me remind you that while I'm very much fond of preparation for interviews, I think it does do a lot of good for us to prepare. But at the same token, when you walk into that interview, forget all your preparation. Just concentrate on the interviewer, their question, and just put your best foot forward. On that last note, let me thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you very soon. Thank you and take care. Bye-bye.